Matt Joe Gow is a New Zealand-born Melbourne resident who has released 4 studio albums. I'm going to start that again. Because I was trying to remember what I said. No, let's start again. Right.
I make you nervous.
I'm always nervous about doing a good job, Matt. Always.
Yeah, I know.
Right. Matt Joe Gow is a New Zealand-born Melbourne resident who has released 4 studio albums, the most recent of which was last year's Between Tonight and Tomorrow, which won the Music Victoria Award for Best Country Album, as did its predecessor, Break, Rattle and Roll. Recently, Matt released a reprise version of the title song, and he's also been collaborating with Kerryn Fields on a forthcoming album. However, we are here to talk about his new acoustic album, The Woodshed Sessions, recorded late last year, which he also produced. Hi, Matt.
How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. And I have been listening closely to the Woodshed Sessions, and I have many questions for you. But I'm going to start by asking, it was recorded on video as well, and you debuted on YouTube last year. What sparked the project?
So I think we were touring in September with my friend Delaney Davidson, and I brought out the Closer to Tomorrow EP, the reprise of Between Tonight and Tomorrow. And I don't know, I think it was like 5 shows. It wasn't that many shows, and I wanted to put a show on online for people maybe back in Aotearoa and people overseas. So I thought, let's do an online show. I think Kerryn suggested it. And I thought, okay. And that sort of built into like being professionally recorded and in studio, and we had mics up, and it sort of became a bigger thing than just you on your phone sort of taking a video of yourself playing guitar. And we were really happy with how it turned out. A lot of people tuned in and they enjoyed it as a one-off show. But the recording was of a high level, and we thought the performance was sound. So we thought, well, why don't we release this for people? You know, they obviously enjoyed it, and we haven't done a live acoustic record before. I haven't released one, so you know, why not? And then I had sort of a bit of time coming up in February to be able to put a show in Melbourne to launch the record. And I thought kind of a surprise album would be nice, where you don't build up with all the singles one after the next, which is the standard procedure these days, and totally makes sense. But I thought it would be nice to just drop an album on people and not even necessarily bring out an official single as such. I mean, we're doing a music video sliced from that whole concept of Grand Ambition, which we've sort of edited quite succinctly with, so we've sort of touched it up a little bit. That'll come out in time, or it may be out when this airs. But it otherwise, the record's gone out to radio, I think just a couple of days ago, recently, and people are just playing whatever they like, which is great.
Will the video, like the longer video production that you aired last year, have another life as well?
It might do. It might do. You know, I think it was cool that people who paid tickets for that, they got to see that show, and then that was it. It was like a one-off thing. So I might not. I might leave it like it was just a one-off event, and then people who come to the show to see us or have this record or on streaming services, they'll be able to hear it that way. Whether I release the whole thing again for everyone to watch, I don't know. I don't know if people want to watch us for 45 minutes, but online, we'll see.
Well, at least you know you have it there. You know, you could just put it out on a whim.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's nice to have, and I'm really glad we did it. And it's just so cool that a whole thing can develop from just one little spark, which was just a conversation. Kerryn and I, she's like, well, you should do an online video. I'm like, online videos. I'm like, so we'll just put a camera up, and she's like, yeah. I'm like, well, maybe in the studio. And we sort of talked about it and talked with Katya and Andy and my band, and we all sort of were on board for it. And it sort of grew into this bigger thing. And now here it is being released. So it's really cool. It wasn't planned at all.
Katya and Andy are Katya Harrop and Andrew Pollock, who are longtime collaborators of yours, and Andrew is a co-producer with you, and they're core members of your band, The Dead Leaves. I should ask how that band got its name.
Oh, wow, you're going back now.
I know they're still playing with you, so it seems appropriate.
They are. I think it was the concept initially was I wanted a really long band name to piss off my record label. One of those Matt, Joe Gow, and the Deadleaves. Because initially at the time, my label were like, you can't have a band name. Because I've been playing around town as Matt, Joe Gow, like in Melbourne a lot, like playing a lot of shows. And so when we signed, they were like, well, you've got to just put your name. And I was like, well, no, because we're a band. Matt, Joe Gow, and the Deadleaves are like, that's too long. And I'm like, well, too bad. So that's sort of how that relationship started, which I remember was quite amusing. But the actual band name, the Deadleaves, I think for me it was just something that suited the music because it was something that is gone and has passed and has that bittersweet element, but it's still something that retains its beauty even though it's finished. Mm-hmm. And I like that concept. And I think that features in a lot of the songs, so it made sense.
Mm-hmm. So when did you start working with Andrew?
Well, it's well over a decade now. He was on the first record, and I'd done some demos with my fellow engineer, my buddy Chris, who engineers like all the records, or at least most of the records. I was living with him in St Kilda, and we had a pedal steel player, but I needed a lead guitarist. So it was back in the day where there was like Mel Band or some sort of band place, and I just was like listing like a band listing like alt country something like that on Facebook. I think it was an actual website for musicians, and I think like because nobody played alt country, there were like 2 guitarists turned up, so I was stuck with him. But he was really good. Even like he was really good even from the get go. Too good actually. If anything, like we had to kind of sort of give him some more edges, I think, because he was just too schooled, if anything. Mm-hmm. But that didn't take him long to loosen up his playing, and he's been a core member and co-producer, and ever since.
And with Katya, when did you start working with her?
Well, interestingly enough, Katya is Andy's cousin, so younger cousin. So he'd been hiding her away, and I think I'd done a song at Bill Chambers called Flowers in Your Hair, which is on this Woodshed Sessions actually. And she had, and we had Bill Chambers tracked, who's a friend of mine and obviously a great guy and massive legend in the country music scene here in Australia. And it was a duet with him, but as you know, the song Flowers in Your Hair, it's like this romantic duet. So we would, there's me singing and then Bill has his voice. When I'm broken down and round the way, which is actually, that's a good Bill Chambers imitation, by the way. He was singing the second verse. It was great. You know, Bill's always great. He knows how to fit in. But Andy was like, well, do you think it worked better with a female voice? And I'm like, I guess so. This is Bill Chambers, man. Like, come on. He's like, yeah, but I got this great idea. I'm like, okay. So he's like, my cousin. And I thought, you can't be just going to bring your family into the band, man. That's not cool. I was like, I was a little hesitant. So I didn't actually meet her, and he just tracked her voice. Then I heard it, and like anyone who hears that song, I thought, wow, where have you been hiding this girl? And then he was like, well, she's only like 19. I'm like, oh, okay. So she was probably like 10 when we were playing. That's where she'd been hiding, right? So, so she immediately started singing with us and been singing with us ever since. So that was on the 7 Years record, Break Rattle and Roll record, Between Tonight and Tomorrow sings on all of them. In Shipwreck, which is on this Woodshed Sessions, has sort of become a complete duet, which interestingly enough, it was when I wrote it. It was a duet. And then it was Andy who was like, I'm not sure it's a duet. Like, I think we should take Katya's voice off. It doesn't work for me. And, you know, and he's very objective, obviously, because that's his cousin. Of course, he loves her very much, put her on anything. I'm like, no, I think she sounds good. Really? And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, why don't you just put our voices together? I'll sing on the second verse like you want, but let's not take her off, and it'll just have us singing together. And I think he thought, but yours is just a scratch vocal. You didn't sing what she sung. It's just going to be random. And I'm like, yeah, but that's cool. That's a ragged album. And then you can hear, if you listen to Shipwreck on Between Tonight and Tomorrow, we're not in time. We're just both kind of singing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it came up real cool. But then in the Woodshed Sessions, I'm like, well, we'll do it how I initially envisioned it, and she'll just sing this like a duet.
Yeah, well, thanks for preempting my question about Shipwreck. That's great. I can't ask that now.
Oh, yes.
But
I'm on both sides. So, Matt, how did you? Well, fancy you asked that, Matt. Yeah. Sorry.
But it does prompt another question, which is, do you often let Andrew win arguments about these things?
Oh, definitely. You know, like I think you're much better when you are able to be open to people you trust's opinion. You got to find the people you trust, right? Like that's hard. Like it's hard to find people who are on the same wavelength, people who really get what you're trying to do. But if you can find them, then you should listen to them. I mean, we disagree as well, and like there are moments mixing all our records where there are instances where he'll say, I don't think this, and I'll say something else. And we have an engineer who chimes in. I mentioned earlier, Chris. It's usually the three of us, so that we have 2-1. But then if it's those two versus me, sometimes I do say, no, trust me, guys. And they'll go, oh, okay. But usually, like if Andy feels real strongly on something, I'll definitely entertain it. And quite often I'll change my mind, yeah.
Yeah, right.
I think so. I think it's just makes for better music. You know, I think when you're producing your own records, you have to be very aware of trying not to be too subjective.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important for self-produced artists. Less so when you're an artist being produced by someone else, because that someone else brings immediate objectivity.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's you producing yourself, if you are unable to be objective, then it's gonna be a mess.
It is a hard practice though, because you almost have to step back from yourself and develop an idea of yourself as an artist from a producer's point of view. So I would imagine there are times when you as a producer, you're at odds with yourself as an artist. Like you kind of got to pull yourself into line or something like that, or make decisions as a producer that as an artist you may not have made, or maybe not. I don't know, because I'm not an artist or a producer.
Yeah, it's definitely different self-producing, and I think you develop a knack for it. But I mean, like any musician, you understand your instrument and how you sing and how you perform. But I rely on those guys as well. So when I'm tracking vocals, for instance, Andy and Chris will be in the other room, and like if those two give a thumbs up, I'm pretty confident that it sounded all right. But also in the way that we record, and as you know, with these records, they're pretty raw. I don't like all the work is done in pre-production, so that when we go in there, you just find that performance for the most part. So it's not. So when I'm doing the pre-production, that's when all the discussion's happening. This is how we're going to approach this, how I'm going to sing this, how this is going to happen. I'm thinking this, and so then when I'm in the studio, it should be sort of second nature by then. You know.
And given that you and Andrew and Katya have performed together for so long, and you trust them, is there a sense that there's a lot that's unspoken between you now as performers? So when it came to recording this, did you even need to rehearse much? Was there much that needed to be talked about beforehand?
No, yeah, and I'm not sure people are aware, but we don't rehearse at all. Those two are amazing performers. I used to rehearse all the time when I started out. I had this band initially, and we just every day were rehearsing. But you know, we didn't quite have. You know, we had a drummer at the time, didn't quite have the abilities of our drummer these days, and we were more just trying to get to a space that we probably couldn't attain, but we just kept trying and practicing because that's what we did. But now having these musicians who I've used for years, and they're really just as good as it gets. So they might practice a little bit on their own. Maybe if I've been on tour with someone else, I'll come back, maybe we'll do one rehearsal and then roll into it. But I think, yeah, if I'm correct, we didn't rehearse the acoustic sessions because I mean these are songs that some of them we've been playing for over a decade, and then Between Tonight and Tomorrow we'd only just toured it in 2023, so I was pretty confident that we could pull it off. But you know, the proof's in the pudding. People can listen to it and see what they think of us live because it's live. It's one take.
Yeah,
Like
right.
truth, it's just all one take.
Well, it does. You have pulled it off, Matt. I'm here to tell you. I'm interested in what you just said, though, about when you were rehearsing with the band, trying to reach a space you couldn't attain. So almost like a surfer searching for the perfect wave. I don't know. Like, is it that sense of a place you're going to reach in rehearsal, in performance that keeps you striving?
Well, when I first started out with this band, we just didn't have all the players that were technically up to the job. They all had their unique talents that they brought to the table, but they didn't have the abilities that the crew that I have now have. And I've been lucky enough to be working with all of them for quite some time. So, you know, but you're loyal to your friends and you just keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. And I think we did a pretty good job, but we had to work really hard
Mm-hmm.
to be at that level. Whereas now, like the drummer I have, Daniel, he plays in like 5 or 6 bands, great Americana bands, and so he's always ready to go. And the same with Andy, Katya. So it's a lot easier in that sense. But I think when we do rehearse, it's for a record. It's like we get together for pre-production, and that's a lot of fun. But going over songs that we've been playing for years, I almost like a little bit of looseness that can come back in from people maybe not quite remembering their parts and just having to be on their toes. That puts that fire and that spark back into songs with band members who've been playing with for years.
I would imagine for you and Katya as well, you can still surprise each other with your harmonies, maybe, because if there is a bit of looseness there, it's like, well, what's going to emerge today?
Well, Katya is such a great singer. She actually doesn't sing the part on record all the time. Like she'll change it quite a lot, actually, and she'll do it really well. She'll do it really well. So when you see her live, she changes it. She's such a great singer, and and Andy's great because he'll play the solos from record because you're like, I want that solo from Shipwreck, you know.
Yeah.
Don't change it all. And he's pretty good like that. He could just whittle all over the place, but he does the solos because he realizes people want to hear the solo.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there are certainly very identifiable solos in some of your songs, or hooks, refrains, whatever. That if he did not play, there would probably be mutiny. Now, when I spoke to you about Between Tonight and Tomorrow, the album last year, you talked about the fact that your voice was more prominently mixed on that album than on previous albums, and of course on the Woodshed Sessions, it's more prominent still. Do you think that means you're embracing being a singer more than you used to?
Yeah, I just want to hear myself more and more. I well, I guess with the Woodshed Sessions, because it's acoustic, first of all, there's just acoustic guitars, maybe mandolin, piano, and so there's less going on.
Right.
So when you're mixing, the vocals are going to have more space, sort of naturally, right? So if you're burying a vocal under 2 acoustics, you've probably done something wrong. So there's that first of all. Whereas if you listen to my album Break Rattle and Roll, some of that's 11 piece. You know, it's got saxophone, electric guitar, another electric guitar, acoustic guitar, drums, bass, piano, etc., etc. So because of that, I think to turn your voice up really loud, it just takes away from the whole thing. It sounds fake. It doesn't sound like a band.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like a karaoke song. So it didn't really work. I sort of try to mix how I think best will suit the song and the vibe what I'm trying to get across. And I think with Between Tonight and Tomorrow, we're trying to get across the concept of the themes that we've talked about in previous interviews of loss and time and life, rebirth, all these themes. And that was best, the vehicle for that was best coming through one man, one person with his guitar singing to you. And then this is helping that person send you the message.
Mhm.
So that's what that record was doing. I guess with the Woodshed Sessions, in the way that there's less instrumentation, first of all, that will bring the voices to the fore. Not just my voice, but the other two as well. And also there's a fair bit of the Between Tonight and Tomorrow record on there. So I think it was probably a conscious effort to mix it in a way that sort of resembles a bit of that sound.
But there are no songs from Break, Rattle and Roll on it. So I'm wondering,
I was wondering if you picked that up. Yeah, I noticed that afterwards. I'm like, oh shit, we did leave. Well, because we'd released an acoustic version of Light My Way, which is off that record. So we'd already done that. So that would be an obvious choice, but I can't go re-releasing.
But We Get Lost might have worked, just suggesting.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I probably, and again, that comes back to it being, it was initially just a show for my fans. It was performance live in studio. We didn't overthink it. If I'd really sat down and nutted it all out, okay, we need to think, I would need one from Break Rattle and Roll and one, but it was just like a bunch of songs. What's one from that record? What's a cool one that'll do this? And we sort of rolled with it. But, you know, for people listening, that's why I put Between Tonight and Tomorrow reprise and the remix on the CD. Those are on the CD for people who asked for them on the CD, because Closer to Tomorrow EP was just digitally released. So I chucked those on there as well. I realized we haven't got a Break Rattle and Roll song out there. It's not like that record won a Music Victoria award or anything. Come on.
Now, you may have already answered this question just talking about how you're choosing the songs, but I was interested in the song order because the Woodshed Session starts with Just This One, which is the penultimate track on Between Tonight and Tomorrow, and it ends with Till My Whole Heart Bursts, which is also from that album. And I don't think there's so much as an arc between them as there's like a set of waves. You sort of start more subdued and more introspective. And then this recording of Till My Whole Heart Bursts is actually really expansive and uplifting, and you build it in a way that the studio version from last year, it's different to
quite different, isn't it? I just remembered, like, we do like an outro on this one, and it's like if you knew the Between Tonight and Tomorrow record and you saw the track listing, you're like, why did he put Till My Whole Heart Burst last? That's like a bit of a foot tapping, and it's like, but we changed it. So it's nice that you noticed the track listing actually.
So I imagine that was, given that you had an outro on that song, there was that conscious building towards it because you have Between Tonight and Tomorrow reprise rendition of in the middle of it. Right, so yeah, it kind of comes down a little bit and goes back up again. I imagine that was quite deliberate.
It was. Well, I'll tell you, trivia, Just This One was initially meant to be track one on Between Tonight and Tomorrow. Right up until the end, it was meant to be track one. It was meant to open the record because it was meant to be 2 minutes and just this raw, like, it's one take, it's me and a guitar, it's a very angry song, it's tracked quickly. I don't listen to the song, and it was just done. It was meant to be expose and show people, oh, this record's going to be really honest and raw. But we felt that Shipwreck with the band sound and the kind of rattling of the opening chord, it just worked as an opener. It was a really cool opener, so it got shifted back in the record to where it could find a place. So then when we tracked this version of Just This One, which is completely different, and I think one of the most different songs on this record, right, in terms of from its origins, I wanted to finally put it first, and again, with the original concept, show people that this record was going to be a bit different to what they maybe thought. Like, they thought, oh, we're just going to get Matt strumming his guitar a bunch of times on his own, singing those songs. It's how, like, how boring is that? So I was like, no, this is a harmonica over a piano. And I got a review from a harmonica magazine the other day. He messaged me like, oh, it's so cool having a piano and harmonica. I'm like, I know. It doesn't happen that much, right? Maybe Stevie and Elton John, but like you don't really hear it that much. So I thought it was just cool to have a piano, wailing harmonica, a song that was really raw, and then to be done in this kind of soulful way. So I thought it'd be really interesting to open the record Yeah, and hopefully those waves that you talk about, I mean, that's the idea, right? Like you want to be going up and down and feel like you're on a bit of a journey. If it just goes like this or like this, it's a bit predictable, I think.
Mm-hmm. I'm still stuck on the fact that you almost started Between Tonight and Tomorrow with just this one. That would have signified quite a different album.
It would, wouldn't it? If you listen to records, 1 through 10, which I love to do, I think it really would. But I think what stopped it was it ended up being a little bit long. It was meant to be, at the start of Go Ahead Celebrate, I have this intro, kind of a Neil Young inspired sort of intro. And so we put that before Go Ahead Celebrate. So just this one was meant to be only like that length, like 1 minute, 2 minutes. And I guess I got on the mic and I just went on a bit long. And so we're like, well, we have to give this a place later on the record. It doesn't just get straight into the album.
Right. Yeah, because they are very different versions. And speaking of different versions, there's my snappy segue. Between Tonight and Tomorrow reprise rendition that appears in the middle of the Woodshed Sessions. You released the reprise recording on the Closer to Tomorrow EP, and that now seems like a bridge between Tonight and Tomorrow, the album, and the Woodshed Sessions. But given the timing of everything, it doesn't seem like that was intentional, that you were like, oh, I'm going to put out this reprise version, then I'm going to have this acoustic album. Or was it intentional that there was a bridge there between those projects?
It definitely wasn't intentional. I mean, as we mentioned, Closer to Tomorrow was an epilogue to that record. And when we released the reprise version, Between Tonight and Tomorrow, and it became quite popular for myself and the band, I think that when we came to the Woodshed Sessions, we're like, okay, well, this works really well, acoustic, so we'll deliver the sort of closer to the reprise type of version, because the original obviously has the drums and all that sort of stuff. And interestingly enough, because Katya's playing the piano on that, she was the one who inspired the reprise. We were playing it for the first time at a venue, I think Music on the Hill, it was called, a really cool venue here in Victoria. And we were trying to figure out how to do Between Tonight and Tomorrow, the song. So Andy and I just started that finger picking stuff, and it was Katya who was like, oh, that's beautiful. I'm not even going to play on that. You should do like, that's amazing. And we were like, oh, okay, well, that's great that she thinks that. And she was like, yeah, it's really, really good. So we started playing it like that, and people reacted. And so it was her that really inspired us to go on and give that rendition of the song that eventually, was recorded properly.
I should say the reason why I'm referring to the version of the song that's on the Woodshed Session as the reprise rendition is because it is not the same recording as the one that's on Close to.
No, it's not. It's not. So, yeah, for those who buy a CD, I did put the official reprise at the end because people wanted it. But the one which interestingly enough is live anyways, it's not like 20 takes. But the one in the middle of the Woodshed Sessions, for any confusion, is just a part of that show. We just went from one song to the next song to the next song, and that's in the middle, and we played it. We played it there, and it's one take like the rest of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, Grand Ambition is the single.
Yeah.
Why did you choose that song?
Again, like we were sitting there and this is what's cool. There was no rehearsal. We were sitting there just before the show, and we thought, why don't we play Grand Ambition? Really, the album with things like, why don't we do Flowers in Your Hair? Oh, no. Oh, yeah, should we? And we just did it. And it was the same with Grand Ambition. Why don't we do that? Okay. So we're playing it. And I think it was Katya who felt like the rhythm would be better in the way that it is now, that we've changed it to. And it's like a really soulful, slowed down, grooving rhythm. And I thought, again, it was one of the songs that we changed more from the original. The original is more that 70s sparkly Americana, Jackson Browne-esque moving song. And this one is more of an acoustic, almost southern Black Crowsy vibe. And I just was really happy with it. We captured us having a discussion, changing the song, playing it, and that's it in one take. And that's kind of what the whole record's about. It's just capturing a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was never meant to be released. It was just a bunch of people who've been playing together for a long time, decided to do something for the fans, had a bit of a chat about how the songs were going to go, played them, and ended up being pretty happy with the results. So we released it. That's really all it was.
A happy confluence of events, one might say.
Yeah, and just again trusting the musicians who I just trust Katya. She's got good ideas. She said, "Why don't we try it like this?" And I'm like, "So like this?" And she's like, "Yeah, like that." And I'm like, "Cool, okay, well, that sounds cool. Let's. So how would the singing work?" And I remember because then we get into the bit where it's like, "I ain't a man of grand," and that bridge. But here's what I want. Here's what I want. And I sort of like, how's that going to work with the timing? So we had to go. No, we've got to go like this, and they're like, "Oh, okay, so yeah." And so I'm having to like, we're having to sort of look at each other because we're like, the timing's totally changed,
Right.
and things like that are fun, like really fun, when you get it right.
I know you play quite a few of your older songs when you play live just as yourself acoustically, and obviously with Andrew and Katya, or even some of your more recent songs. I'm wondering, in the performance of them and perhaps even in the recording of this and the mixing of it, are there aspects of those songs that surprise you as the writer, where there are sort of layers to the story that you're recognizing for the first time that might have emerged subconsciously when you were first writing and recording?
I'm more surprised when I hear the original song again.
Right.
That's more surprising because songs evolve long past when you track them, and they keep evolving. They never really stop. Certainly, if they're part of a live set.
Hmm.
So when I go back and hear "Steady Life" or "I Let You Be" from the Messenger record,
Hmm.
whilst I'm proud of that record, I hear that moment in time, and I'm like, oh right, we didn't do that, and we didn't do that, and we played it like that, and I'm like, oh okay, gee, okay, and it sort of that is more a surprise, I think. When I play the songs now, I'm surprised we're still playing them, some of them, and I'm surprised they still work, which is a really lovely surprise. Like that's why I Let You Be is in the set because, I mean, you've been to the shows, and I would be playing that song, and people would say, "What record's that on?" And I would sort of say, "Oh, maybe it's on that one," and they would buy the record, and then they would message me, "It's not on that record." So I decided I better come clean, and so now when I play "I Let You Be," I say, "Oh, look, it's not on any of those records. It's not in press at the moment. You have to grab it digitally." So I think putting "I Let You Be" on this was really cool. So now I can say, "Here it is on this record."
True,
Well,
true.
yeah, and so that's on the first album. So the fact that people are still resonating with that, that's really, yeah, I'm really touched by that.
When you said you're surprised that you're still playing some of these songs, is that because you always presumed they'd have a shelf life?
I hoped they'd have a shelf life. I definitely hoped that because I was trying to make music from the heart, even on the first record, is very honest. And I'd hoped that if that connected with people then, that it would continue to. But I'm still surprised by it. Still surprised by it. And as I said, I'm touched by it. And I'm really proud of what we achieved all those years ago just on the first record.
Now, you have some longtime fans who I'm sure will give you feedback on your song selection. Is there anything you've left off the Woodshed Sessions that you anticipate being asked for?
Yeah, yeah. Well, like you noticed, we didn't put anything from Break Rattle and Roll on there, and that wasn't calculated. It's just the way that it sort of came about. I might have to do the Woodshed Sessions too sometime. I think when you don't have sort of one massive uh, hit, like I'm not sure what sort of artist we'd be talking about, but one hit wonder people, then you have songs that are popular, but what's great is you get asked for all sorts of different songs. People listen to your whole catalog, and again, that's a wonderful thing. So I try to change my sets up and include different songs. And my band will tell you sometimes I just throw songs in like a few days before, and they'll be like, oh, all right, like just that they haven't heard. I like to do that, keep them on their toes. So I think on this one, we consciously tried to do a fair bit of between tonight and tomorrow because that's where we were at the time. But we also wanted to go back, and so as you mentioned, there's Grand Ambition from the 7 Years record. There's Flowers in Your Hair from the 7 Years record. There's I'll Let You Be off the first album. And Steady Life, is that on there? I can't remember. No, we didn't do. So that's one that I think people will be a little pissed about. But we'll get to that one day, you know. And it's good to know that we have different songs that people like. I think that's really cool.
Well, The Steady Life can be the #1 track on the Woodshed Sessions too. There you go.
Yeah, yeah, it's actually not a bad idea. We might do it. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned at the top that you're playing a show at George Lane in St Kilda on the 10th of February with Andrew and with Katya. Why that venue?
That venue is really close to my heart. It's also close to my home address, which is wonderful. I can drive there in like 10 minutes. And the musician will tell you that's a wonderful thing. You pack up, you're home in like 20 minutes. But the venue is close to my heart. Good friends of mine run it. I've had some very special shows there. Solo, shows there with Kerryn, shows there with the band. Usually in an acoustic setting, it works really well for that. So anyone in Victoria, Melbourne, who doesn't know about George Lane should get along, whether it's my show or another show. It's a really hip venue. I love playing there, and I can't remember how many shows I played there, but it'll be a few.
Mm-hmm. And so will it just be you three, or are you having a support act?
Yeah, we're going to have a support, but then I thought, for that exact reason you mentioned, trying to get all the songs, because I'm touring so much with Kerryn in our duo this year. I think this February 10 show is my only Joe Gow from the Dead Leaf show, maybe for the year, or at least the first half of the year. So I wanted to be able to play 2 sets. So we're going to do 2 sets, and all that stuff that people would ask for that should have been on this acoustic live album, we'll try get that in the other set, perhaps.
Well, and if you can record the show, then there's the second album.
Yeah, I guess we can record the show. Yeah, it's sort of like it just keeps going, right? It's
absolutely.
Yeah.
You nicely set me up to ask about your project with Kerryn, because you've released 2 singles already and you are working towards an album. So how is that going? What are the plans?
It's great. I just finished mastering the record with Andy and Chris. That was last weekend. Well, a couple of weekends ago when I was in Illawarra Festival. I'll be playing a show. Go back to the Calm, headphones on, mix, go back, play. It was full on. But I'm really, really happy with how that's come up. It was a wonderful experience, and again, different to the Woodshed Sessions, different to Between Tonight and Tomorrow. This was, I think, like 6, 7 people, all acoustic again, but a different acoustic setup, fiddle and double bass, and and mandolin. It's going to be really, really beautiful. I'm really excited for people to hear it. So the next single for that will be out in, I think, late March. Yeah, with a music video and everything.
And I think the two of you made the music videos for the first 2 singles.
Yeah, we made the music videos for the first 2 singles. We just made the one for this next single. Almost Died. We're in a once-in-a-century storm in Lower Hutt in a lighthouse on a cliff.
Nice.
Yep. And houses were destroyed, and we sort of thought this is normal weather, and came down and had all these messages saying, "Are you alive?" So that was crazy, but yeah, looking forward to that song. That will be exciting.
So it seems like you're on quite a run here. You had Between Tonight and Tomorrow out last year. Then you had the reprise version. Now you had the Woodshed Sessions. Shouldn't try to say that too quickly. And then the project with Kerryn. So do you feel like there is this like a flourish of output, for lack of a better term?
Maybe it's the trauma of COVID that has me running to release stuff, because, as you mentioned, Between Tonight and Tomorrow, Closer to Tomorrow EP, this one, the one with Kerryn, it's a bit crazy, huh? I think there was definitely pent up and built up creativity from the downtime, and so I've just been catching up.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're almost caught up.
Right.
Yeah, we're almost caught up. I got a couple other things in the pipeline. I got a track with Delaney Davidson that I'm looking to do, and I'm producing some other artists as well that I'm looking to get done over the next few months. But in terms of actual full albums, no more surprise albums. That'll be, apart from the one with Kerryn,
Mm-hmm.
that'll be me for 2024, and I can put the feet up and relax for a little bit. Well, I'm touring in UK in July, so after that I'll relax. Yeah.
Right. Are you and Kerryn touring, or just you?
Just that's me in the UK. Yeah, just me toting my bag of records.
Yeah.
Anyone want the Woodshed Sessions, Governor? Yeah.
Well, Matt,
So
I'm
I have
sure
a there in some shows. It'll be cool. And I also want to escape the Melbourne winter.
look, that is fair enough. Not that I've lived through one, but people tell me they're not great.
No, they're long. Yeah.
Well, I'm certainly enjoying the flourish of creative output. I'm sure other people are as well. They can catch you at George Lane on the 10th of February. You and Kerryn will no doubt be playing some dates in support of that album and with announcements to come in due course. But in the meantime, the Woodshed Sessions, they can go and listen to. And it's been lovely, as always, to talk to you.
All right. Till next time. Bye.